Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another wonderful episode of Conversational Witchcraft. Before we get going, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you hit all the alert buttons. Make sure you support us. Hit the support us link. You can buy me a cup of coffee. You can donate to this podcast so we can keep on giving you amazing productions, great information, inspiration, and magic and conversations here. And don't forget, you can learn more about me and food magic and kitchen witchery by visiting me at cucinaaurora.com and following me on social media at Cucina Aurora. Okay, so I'm excited today because we're going to talk to two people that do something I know nothing about, and you know I love to learn. So today we're welcoming Paulina Stevens and Jasmina Von Teela. Said it right, Von Teela. Paulina grew up rooted in Muchwaya Romani heritage of fortune telling and healing. Paulina has blended ancestral wisdom with modern holistic practices. Her expertise is in tarot, palmistry, and energy healing forms, and it forms the foundation of her comprehensive wellness coaching. Jasmina is a writer, educator, performer, and fortune teller in their mixed Sinti Romani tradition. They deal in tarot, palms, and tea leaves and teach workshops on divination, spiritual wellness, and the creative arts in person and online. Jasmina and Paulina are co hosts of Romanistan. I hope I said that right. Romanistan, a podcast celebrating Romani culture, and the co authors of Secrets of Romani Fortune Telling. Jasmina, Paulina, thanks for being here. I'm really excited. It turns out that me and Jasmina are neighbors, kind of.
Yeah. New Hampshire.
I mean, and Paulina, you're out there on the West Coast.
Yeah, I'm far
So,
away.
so how do you two know each other?
I love when Paulina tells a story.
Okay, so um yeah, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to shorten it up a little bit. So, I basically left my community. I was in an arranged marriage and I had two kids within the culture, and it's just not really customary for women to have their children when they are, when they leave or separate from the marriage. In my specific subgroup, not all Roma are like that. But that was the case. I left my community and basically I wanted to fight for my kids. And I was like, I don't know, like at the time that I left, like people were reaching out and I was like, I think this needs to be talked about. I don't know how to get it out there. And I actually came across a video of Jez talking about I think it was a YouTube video of Jez talking about like just like Roma, like we refer to ourselves as gypsies sometimes, but it's not recommended for outsiders to use that term. But basically, that's actually what I think the video was about, like just kind of how we're received or perceived by the outside world. And it felt like kind of new to me. And I was like, I really want to, you know, work with this person. I didn't have anybody else in mind, but I saw just this video and I was like, I think this would be great. And then I think I emailed them or called them, but yeah, you can take it from here.
Yeah, so when Paulina first reached out to me, it was such a wild time. The pandemic had just started and I had already had a chronic illness and it hit me even harder when I got COVID. I was really ill. My mother had just passed away
Mm.
and I initially told Paulina like no because I didn't feel like I had the capacity, but also, Romani culture is you can be Romani in a lot of different ways. I'm mixed and assimilated, which means, like, for me, only my maternal grandmother is Romani, and she, yes, passed on culture and pride and all of that to me. But I was thinking, as a mixed person who didn't grow up in community like Paulina, I felt a little uncomfortable with having a platform. Um, and it's after a little while, though, a little healing and recovering, Paulina and I continued to talk a little bit, and Paulina was like, "Don't say no right away. Let's check in a few months, see
You
how
were
you're
like, I'm not the right one. Like, I'm
Yeah,
not the right person. I was like, wait.
just hold on." And I thought about it, and I talked to some friends, and yeah, then suddenly it felt like the absolute right thing to do. And Paulina and I didn't even really know each other, but we knew that we wanted to educate people about who Roma are and aren't. we knew we wanted to talk about issues that we face within the culture, but also racism. And we wanted to highlight Roma who were doing really cool things that maybe not might not necessarily be traditional. And it's been really lovely because over the years we've been podcasting since 2021. We've become really close friends. We wrote Secrets of Romani Fortune Telling together, and we're like family. It's been really beautiful.
What a great story. I mean, there was a lot of shit that came out of the pandemic, but there was
Yeah.
also these beautiful relationships, right? There are people that were brought into our lives because of isolation, which doesn't
Hmm.
sound like that would happen, but
For
like the
sure.
internet really was our best friend and we were able to connect with people. I'm so happy that you found each other and that
Yeah.
you're able to, create something so important for your culture, for other people, and for people like me that aren't really familiar with the struggles that your cultural people have been through. So I'm sure there's a lot of people like me. I'm a little bit familiar with some of the struggles of the Roma people. Um, Thank you for the resource page, because you think I think I know, and then I
Yeah.
go, oh, I didn't. I mean, I knew this much. So, can you let our listeners know what is that perspective? What, in a nutshell, if you could condense that, uh, talk to us about your people, your culture, and those struggles that were and still are today. So we know what your perspective is.
Yeah, I think it's helpful to start with a history, because, history it's important. So Roma are a diasporic ethnic group originally from, India, Pakistan, like Northwest India region, and began leaving in waves around the 10th century, and likely because of Islamic forces coming in. There was a war between India and the Ghaznavid Empire. And basically, you had a lot of displaced Roma who were probably early soldiers, like those early Indian Army folks. And when the army lost, the Indian Army lost about a century later, the war went on for a really long time. You had a huge culture of people who were displaced.
Yeah.
And some of them were likely captured. Maybe some of them moved west of their own accord. Maybe some went back to India. But essentially, as soon as Roma started arriving in Europe around the late 1300s, they were met with a ton of persecution. It was the end of the Crusades. And this persecution has continued throughout the centuries. Just to name a few highlights, starting off with 500 years of slavery in present-day Romania. So a lot of people confuse Roma and Romanians, and we're not the same, although lots of Roma live in Romania today, and you can be both, but they're not the same ethnic groups. But 500 years of slavery, multiple genocides, mass deportations, all types of persecution, over policing, lots of very difficult things, human trafficking. And so all types of discrimination against Roma continue today, and Roma are about 15 million worldwide, and we live all over the world. There are about a million in America. And a lot of people are familiar with gypsy as a word to describe us. It's been used historically as a racial slur, and it also conjures stereotypes of like thievery, like to be gypped means to be, cheated like a gypsy, of promiscuity, which comes out of our history of slavery and human trafficking. And human trafficking is a current major crisis, especially in Europe, analogous to the murdered and missing Indigenous women in the US. Um, and also like magical qualities, because, these centuries of persecution means that we weren't very integrated into society. And sometimes that was our choice as a reaction to racism. Sometimes it wasn't. And a lot of folks have family trades or survival trades. And so a lot of families might be associated with different kinds of work. And that is our resilience. And that's, how we make our way in the world. But also Roma work other jobs outside of those things. And Paulina and I were both born into fortune telling families. And we're really passionate about combining activism with the work that we do, not just with the podcast, but even as we continue to do tarot, palmistry, tea leaf reading, coffee reading, energy work, healing
Yeah.
sessions, all these things. We want to let people know why we historically have this job. Like, not all Roma do this work, but why survival trades exist. And we also want to advocate for the rights and representation of Roma because we are diasporic, we don't have a homeland. And so, we don't have representation really in places like the UN or other things where we could platform
Mm.
for our rights because Roma are still facing housing, employment, education, et cetera, discrimination. And then we have the issues within our own culture of, sexism and arranged marriage that Paulina had mentioned.
Wow.
Paulina, do you
Wow.
want to add anything? I know I just said many things.
I know, I think you got it all together. Yeah, like we were both raised in these fortune telling families with like a little bit of different context, but like so many similarities, and it's just super crazy how like I think just across different countries and origins, like Roma have a lot of similarities. But yeah.
Mhm.
That is so much information. And thank you for sharing that. And thank you for educating so many people on the struggles of Roma. I think when we talk about things like this, I can't help but look at the current state of the world and learning the history a little bit and going, how in the fuck are we here at this moment, right? How is this like I don't understand how human beings haven't evolved in love and acceptance, and we're devolving away from caring about fellow human beings, and we're just worried about, where they come from and what color they are. Like
Mhm.
it just blows my mind. So and I can't even imagine like how hard that is for you having that cultural you know I don't know what the word is, having that backlash, that story that comes with you, to look at what's happening with people today with mass deportations and not just your own people, but all the immigrants being unjustly arrested. Like that's got to be so hard. I promise I'm not going to get up on a
It's
soapbox because it's
overwhelming, honestly. Yeah. No. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, and we're trying, I mean, I've been thinking a lot about like what does it mean to lead with love? And I'm like, sometimes leading with love is fiercely protective. Sometimes leading with love is resistance. Sometimes it's disobeying orders.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's just fearlessly being yourself.
yeah, it's tough time.
Right? Sometimes it's fearlessly being yourself. And I think the fact that that's what you guys are doing on a regular basis, being you, getting out of situations that weren't right for you, writing books and educating people, that is resistance. That is love. And that's how that having these conversations is how we educate people and prevent things from happening within people that care,
Mhm.
so I have to thank you for that. um wow, there's so much. I have like a whole page of notes of things to talk to you guys about, so hang on, let me look at this. How did you know that? Yeah, yeah, so that's what brought you together. So you both grew up in these fortune telling families. So for me, my point of reference is I can come from a very conservative Italian Catholic family. Okay.
Mm.
So the traditions that were passed down for me were things like, food and cooking. And there was some folk magic in that was, you would never have called it folk magic. It was,
Mhm.
this putting salt this way or spitting on someone or, those kind of things that like your old grandma did, right? Which probably all of our old grandmas did, regardless of where they came from, right? They all these weird little folk traditions.
We love
Um,
grandmas.
right? What
Right.
was what was the experience like growing up? Let's focus on that fortune telling and like that magical aspect, right? What are your experiences with those things growing up that brought you through your culture?
Yeah, so um basically, I mean, Jess explained the part perfectly where Roma ultimately lived in this like just lived in this world of persecution, you know.
Mm,
So my family specifically came here after the Holocaust, and then half of my other family came here before that, like after, why did they even come here? Um, just like a lot of horrible things, basically, like war, oh, slavery. So like late 1800s slavery, and then the other half came here, like World War II refugees, like and just a lot of like crazy stuff. And they developed this kind of othering, like they had to stay in their community. We're
Yeah.
not allowed to marry outside. We're not allowed to even really have regular jobs or go to school, because when we did do those things, like there were a lot of bad and horrible things that would happen to us. And so we were kind of already outcasted. And then I'm going to go a little bit off topic just for a second. So Roma, as you guys know now, like, okay, we're already outcasted from society, but now modern day times, fast forward really quick. Um, if you like are in community or not in community or whatever it is, like if you don't abide by what the traditional, Roma kind of do, like if you do marry outside of the culture a lot of the times, or do go to school, or you are mixed or assimilated, now you're even more of an outcast, especially like if you're like part of LGBTQIA plus community, or like if you just don't have any regular, like, I don't know, if you even work, outside, like outside of our regular, like, jobs or trades, like you are already outcasted. So that's kind of why we also created Romanistan. Like we are the outcast of the outcast. Like
Mhm.
we're very extra outcasted. But like that's and now rewind again. So growing up in a fortune telling family, like we weren't allowed to do a lot of other trades. Like it just wasn't really allowed for us. So we were told, like my family was also Catholic, which is interesting, but our religions and our ceremonies, like we praised, gods that have origins from like India. We also would like make offerings to like a Buddha statue, like, and we would also practice old like Orthodox traditions. So it's like we practice a million traditions, but like we were Catholic, and I'm saying that with air quotes. So like there were many
Yeah.
things that we did, and fortune telling was our, way to survive. We can do that traveling. So you can do fortune telling anywhere. You can read someone's palm anywhere. You can take
Hmm.
a card with you. You could go on the street, set a blanket out. You can pass out a card. Like there's just so many ways to do it in so many different places. But growing up, it was like you have to do fortune telling. So early, as a kid, and sometimes, older than that, like once you're older, like 12, 13 years old, like you can communicate well, like, you can basically work at that age. Um, we're sometimes told things like, oh, well, in order for us to, eat tonight, like you need to bring something, like you need to make some kind of money on the street, like, and so sometimes I like ride my bike, go downtown, and like, would you do, a palm reading $10, $20, like $5, like anything, and that's spaghetti sauce, that's noodles, that's this,
Right.
or meat, like it's this, it's that. So
Wow.
there's that level, a little bit level of pressure that's put on us. And sometimes that pressure is good, sometimes it's not. But our book also talks a lot about those little like stories and things like that. So it was like as we got older, I remember saying things like, oh, well, like I want to do this, or I want to, be a doctor, be this, be that. And then it's just like, no, like, that's not allowed. Like you have to do this forever. And I'm like, okay. And so I took a little time away from fortune telling when I left the community, and I kind of just put my own like twist on it. That's like, I'm not going to do fortune telling because I have to, but it's more like I love doing it. I ended up getting really bored working a regular 9 to 5, and then I was like, I really miss it. And now obviously I'm back, and it's a huge part of my life. But yeah,
I mean, there's something to be said about the traditions passed through family and culture, that sort of um, tethering to ancestry through these traditions that I think are really important. I think one of the things that you said that was really poignant is how you were othered from the others, right? And I think a lot of people in the world can feel that way. I think, in the witchcraft community. Well, I'm not witchy enough to be in that community because I'm just a kitchen witch and I'm not out there doing, esoteric rituals and I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that. I have heard many people, many of my queer friends say, well, I'm either too gay or not gay enough, or I'm not trans enough, or I'm trans, but I'm not, a butch guy, like that. We tend to just other anything that is different. And even amongst our other communities, we're so, as human beings, so afraid of difference that we still insulate from, oh, well, you're too outspoken. Oh, you're too this. Oh, you're not enough that. It's such an interesting phenomenon of human beings that I feel like that is something we as a generation are working so hard to change and to move forward and kind of unravel. So I just wanted to discuss that point a little bit and say I completely get it. But I'm also not aware of these Roma communities. Like, I don't know if I've ever known anyone who identifies or says, I'm Roma. Like, I'm trying to think in my mind of who I know that is within that culture, and I can't think of anyone. So are these
There's a
communities
reason for
kept?
that.
Yeah. So yeah, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, both Paulina and I, and like most Roma that who we know, were raised to never tell anyone that we were Romani.
Right.
You were super traditional, or you were mixed and assimilated. That was a really big secret, and you didn't want anyone to know. And someone recently asked us, like, "Oh, did you feel like, being a Romani reader like gave you an edge, where you're like the real deal?" And we're like, I mean, it's sort of unusual. These like we and other readers who are like, yes, I'm Roma. It's sort of unusual to do that. And usually they're activists who want to make a point of being like, we're going to talk about Romani issues. And so very likely you've probably met Romani people who you had no idea.
Yeah.
Um, because yeah, persecution is pretty intense, and in a lot of European countries, if it's difficult to assimilate, most people know from your accent, from your look, from your family name, all these different things, who you are. In America, it's like a little easier to blend in, unless you know, maybe you don't know. So, and
Yeah.
police do actively keep registries of Romani people in the US. Like that's a real thing. And so people really do keep it quiet, because other than just people being racist to you, there's also security issue concerns.
Wow. You're kind of blowing my mind a little bit. You have a question here that's like, what can you tell us about Romani culture that most people don't know? And everything you're saying is things most people don't know. Is there something in particular that you want people to know about Romani culture?
Hmm. Paulina, do you want to start with that one?
I would say I want people to know we're all different. Like everyone's different. Jess had a little bit of a different background with fortune telling than I did. And it's like, and obviously we're still under the fortune telling realm, like we're still under the gypsy realm, but like it's just different, and like is educated. I got taken out of school early, and like other Roma, other gypsies around the world, like there's gypsies that do all different kinds of things. There's gypsies that don't even touch fortune telling. Like there's gypsies literally in every like continent, and it's like I don't want people to kind of like group us in this one kind of like category or this one job or these stereotypical things. So I would say like don't assume anything as you communicate or when you come across like Roma, like don't assume that they're even like, spiritual fortune tellers or don't assume that they've, done these certain things. Like, everyone is different. I would say that's what I'd like people to know. But what about you, Jess?
I 100% agree with that. That was going to be mine. And so I'll build on that. I think I'd like to talk a little bit about the word gypsy because it could be legitimately confusing for people. And so this is less about the culture, but more about like how people might identify. So we mentioned that gypsy is a word that it's like totally fine for Roma to reclaim and use. I get that that can be confusing for some people because it's like, oh, it's a slur, so you shouldn't say it either. But you don't get to police how other people identify. And also, it. we use it because we grew up using that word, not because we're trying to be cool and flex on anyone.
Right.
And so
I didn't
it,
even know what Roma or like Romani, like we say Roma, Romani. So when I heard like Roma, I was like, what the hell is Roma? Like Jess was one of the first people that really educated about that publicly. And I was like, whoa, like that's like what the outside world knows us as.
yeah, and it's
Wow.
crazy because I learned that word from a book when I was 16 because my grandmother grew up using the word gypsy and the word Zigeuner is very bad word in German. But that was the word that she knew too. I mean, people in the camps, wore the Zigeuner, what's the word, like patch,
Mhm.
um, that the Nazis gave them to exterminate them. So it's kind of wild that like my grandmother didn't know the proper word, but it's not wild because she didn't have a lot of access to education. She grew up hiding her
Right.
ethnicity. She grew up under this intense like terror and regime of pressure. Um, and so, when she's telling me we're gypsies, she had no idea that Roma came from India. And so, like, these are things that I learned later and was like,
Yeah.
wow, this is nuts that I didn't even know this about myself until I was like practically an adult. And then I only discovered there were Roma writers into my 20s. And I was like, oh my God, I'm a writer too. Oh my God. But anyway, coming back to this. In the UK, you will hear the word gypsy used very neutrally. And some people in the UK like that, and some people do not. It's a legal category. Some people are like, cool, that's the word I use. We have much worse racial slurs for us over here. I don't really consider it a slur. Some people are like, isn't it messed up that our slur is a racial category? And so,
Yes.
yeah, and so it's sort of like a both and where it's like, if you don't know whether or not you should use the word, you can ask. If you are not Roma and you haven't been invited by, like, let's say, like, you become really good friends with me and Paulina, we'll probably just start using gypsy around you really casually. And if we're super tight, we might be like, just call us gypsies, whatever, it's fine. Like,
Yeah, that's how
um,
we do it because
because
it's
it's
just,
it
yeah.
feels like family, but like that's something you're invited into.
Sure.
And you might never be invited into it and don't take it personally because not everyone feels that way about the word. Some people who I've met in America are just like, nope, that's a disgusting word. I never use it, and feel want to star it out and everything. And so I think just give room for this to be a complicated word. If you're not Roma, you don't have to use it or worry about it. If you're like, oh, but I love gypsy jazz, what should I call it? It's called Manouche jazz. That's the group of the Roma who created that kind of jazz, or Sinti jazz, my folks, because there's also a version of it like that. And so you just get to learn more about the
Yeah.
terms you can use, and also just be respectful that there are going to be, especially older Romani folks who are like, I am a gypsy who's proud of it, and you can call me that. And that's great for them. Not everyone's going to be like that. So you just got to be cool with it and
Yeah.
learn more. Don't feel bad about it if you didn't know or if you messed up or
Yeah.
you dressed up as a gypsy for Halloween. Like, it's okay. We can do better moving forward.
I mean, I think that is appreciated, but I feel like if you don't know, like if you're like, gee, is that a bad word? I don't give a shit who you're talking to. I don't care about what culture you're talking about. If you're like, don't use
Yeah,
it.
just don't do it.
Just
You're
don't
not
do.
sure.
I have one rule in life, and it's don't be a dick. Like that's my one rule across the board. Don't be a dick. And if you don't know if you should or shouldn't use a word, we're adults. If I was 7, okay, but we're adults, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good point to be able to say, listen, just don't, unless you're particularly invited in to this culture. This is not it's not appropriate, and
Yeah.
I think that's perfectly fair. I think that's perfectly fair. I really want to talk a lot about your book, and I know we're short on time, so let's take a quick break, hear from our amazing sponsors, and then we're going to come back and talk about the secrets of Romani Fortune Telling. We will be right back. Okay, we are back with Jasmina Teela and Paulina Stevens. I really like this rhyme scheme you guys have going with your
It's
names.
good.
As if like weren't a perfect pair to begin with, but like it's absolutely fantastic. So the new book is Secrets of Romani Fortune Telling, Divining with Tarot, Palmistry, Tea Leaves, and more. So we've talked about fortune telling. In my world, it's we call it a divination, right? So is there a like what's different about Romani fortune telling versus traditional like European tarot cards and divination? Where's the difference there?
Actually, I love the way Paulina answers this. Please take it away.
I'm not as well spoken as Jess. I'll just let people know
That's
that.
bullshit. That's bullshit. I love listening to you talk.
Um, you know, like we're the OG, like European fortune telling is Romani fortune telling. Like we brought this fortune telling, over 1,000 years ago
Yeah.
into Europe, like during that time frame. And yes, we were like persecuted for it too at the same time. But I think it, it's a good time to talk about like cultural appropriation as well, where it's like, so we go into Europe and like we like fortune telling, we like all these different colors and patterns from all over the world and blah blah blah. And when we do it, like it's bad and like it's looked down upon and like all these things are happening. But then when like Europeans go and take it like to the next level, like they do it and it's like it's looked at as more respectable and better. And like boho style was even inspired by Roma, like coming into Europe. Like there's a lot of things that people don't know, but our fortune telling, I feel like it's just different because we popularized it and, we used it for survival. So there's certain things about fortune telling that we know, not just like on a spiritual level, but also on a business level. And I don't want that to be like a bad or embarrassing topic. Like I think Jess actually says this great thing that I repeat a lot of the time, but like you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. And it's out into the world. And so some people have different views on it. Some Roma believe that their fortune telling and tarot is a closed practice because it's their survival practice, and I think that's okay. But the way we feel are like people are practicing it everywhere. It's super popularized and yeah, like it can't be like reverted back into something small. But with that said, like we talk about how it's traditional to us and how it's been passed down a lot just through word of mouth and through practicing it as a kid. And it's like something that most people, it's actually something that is never really talked about the details of it in the business aspect of it. Like we couldn't find it anywhere. We couldn't find that stuff anywhere online, anywhere in a book. Like there is no real written guide or anything really that talks about it. And so that's why we believe like it's different. There's a lot of different, I think, specialties that we did create or popularize from our travels, from our trauma, and from our practice, and from needing to survive, and also for our own mental health. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, just want to say this one quick story, but like my grandmother, who has passed away now, um, she she had some mental health, um, mental health issues, I guess. And she
Stuff.
would, I guess that's it, mental health stuff,
Stuff.
and would run away a lot of the time. Like we didn't know where she was. And we had heard stories from nurses and from people like she would survive sometimes in the hospitals, in the mental hospitals or mental institutions by giving readings to the nurses and the doctors. And so it was like just this so, and she'd make money to buy her bus ticket and, find her way back to everyone. So it was just like there's stories and there's things like that that I'm not sure a lot of families have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Girl, we have never talked about that. And when my mom was in the hospital several times, she also, n not by making money, but like got through by just reading for other patients because she
Yeah.
was just like,
Right.
I need something to do.
And there's also like
Right.
let's not poo-poo the help aspect of that, right?
It's
So
very real. Yeah.
yeah, that you're using it as a survival tool, right? You're using it as a skill, like you said, for business, for work. But at the core of divination, anytime you're doing divination, it is to help other people. It's to help someone or yourself gain insight, perspective, connect with, the other plane, right? Like, so I think that is often forgotten that this is a service, right? Like
Hmm.
this is, so if your mom was in the hospital, your grandmother's there, she's finding joy in the service of connecting with other human beings and helping them. You don't go trying to find a reading if everything's great in your life.
Yeah.
So many people, especially for their first reading with anyone, is I'm having a hard time. I don't know the answers. This is my last option. And then they're like, oh, wow, okay, this is something, right? So I think that there's definitely something on, there's some meat on that bone of that service of helping others, right?
Absolutely. We talk in the book about how there's certain practices that Roma have a tendency to practice only among each other, certain that we tend to practice just for work, but sometimes there's overlap. Like I definitely read, I have Roma clients who I read for and tarot, tea leaf, palm. But the maybe my favorite part of the book, it's hard to choose a favorite. My favorite part today is we talked to Ethel Brooks briefly in the book, a really wonderful Romani feminist academic, about how this work has been undervalued even in Romani community because it's traditionally been women's work, because it's traditionally been emotional labor, and it's been holding space for people going through suffering, which is not always valued, even though how do we get through life without it? And so I just really loved that point that, yeah, it is really important work. We don't want to claim that it's therapy or that we're therapists or that we're doctors, because the reason why people come to us sometimes is because maybe they're already doing that and they need a little spiritual guidance, or they need to look at things from a different perspective, or just have be able to share with someone outside of that context. But we love a good therapist and we love people to be taking care of themselves. But
It's funny that you said that because the
uh,
next thing that I wrote down in big letters and I started was fortune telling is not therapy.
yeah,
Right? You
totally.
have a whole section in the book, and that was like the part that I really like was gravitating towards is fortune telling is not therapy. In the greater witchcraft community, I know so many people who are like, I don't need, I'm working on myself because I got my rose quartz and I made this tea and I'm standing in my power and everything's going to be okay. And I'm like, girl, you need to also do the work, right? It's not nothing in any type of divination practice is therapy. Nothing is
Mhm.
going to fix the broken bits of your psyche. You have to do that yourself. These are tools that help you to kind of mend those spaces in your heart and spirit. Is there anything in particular for you guys personally? Whether it is, we're talking a lot about fortune telling. Are you, when you're saying fortune telling, which thing in fortune telling is the thing for you? Is it tarot? Is it tea leaves? Is it palmistry? For you personally, is there one method that speaks to you that has healed you more that you find you can do more healing work with?
I don't have a favorite, and I feel like they all have their special uses. Like just to be brief, like palmistry is such a good way to learn more about your personality and see the big picture of your past, present, and future. And so if someone is feeling like they don't know themselves at all, like a palm reading is such a good place to start. Tarot is really great if you want to ask, maybe multiple questions or look at multiple angles of something that's going on now or moving forward or anything that's more abstract, and if you like the images of the tarot, if you like looking at something and you love art, like what a cool way to connect. And then for me, tea leaf reading is so interesting. It's almost like dream interpretation, which I also
Mm,
offer. Um, because the images that come up are really unique to the person. They're ephemeral. With the tarot cards, it's the same cards every time, but they might mean different things. With the tea leaves, maybe you'd have a recurring symbol, but generally the leaves arrange themselves a different way. And I like that they all have their gifts and specialties, and I love using all of them. Sometimes in a session we'll do all three, and we'll add even some more that I don't publicly advertise.
right, right. How about you, Paulina?
I sometimes hate my answer to this because it is, yeah, it is so like just typical, I think, in the spiritual world, but I did grow up with tarot. Like I grew up with the cards and like they're super like easy for me to lead off of. And then I realized that when I'm doing one other divination tool is like maybe we called it something different like back in the day, but it's a face reading where you just kind of
Mm.
sit with somebody and you look at them and then you just talk about what comes to mind or like what you feel. And I realize even when I'm doing a face reading, like I start to see tarot cards and I'm like, what the hell? But like it's become such so integrated into like all parts of my practices that it's just something that I think I'm bound to, like the tarot cards for sure.
I think
But
that's totally valid. It's the place you're most comfortable is with their cards. And I mean, that makes perfect sense to me, you know? I mean, I love that. I want to ask you, oh God, I have two really good questions in only 10 minutes. I think the thing I want to ask you is how does your view as feminists impact your spiritual work?
Oh, what a cool question. Yeah, so we were even just talking on the podcast with this amazing journalist and activist, Glinda Horvat. She's also, or Gilda Horvat, sorry. And she also goes by Nancy Black as a rapper. And she was like, oh, I'm starting to feel like feminism is not the word that even describes me anymore. Because she's like, it can be so exclusionary. It can exclude, trans women if you're a TERF or whatever. And so I was sharing that the word liberationist is really interesting to me, but basically it's like whatever the word is, if you believe that all genders should have equal rights and opportunities, like that's an operational feminist. So, um, I think that it has been really important to me spiritually because I think what I care most about is having all my clients feel empowered. And so many people come to me, even just going with the daily bread and butter of doing this work. People who are a lot of women who are in abusive relationships come
Mm,
to a fortune teller when they're like, how do I get away from him? Like
yes.
we deal with like the real struggles day to day, especially that women go through because most of my clients are women or gender non-conforming folks, queer folks, gender marginalized people, basically. And so I serve them. And also, I care about our issues. I share those issues. I'm queer,
Yeah.
I'm non-binary, and I feel like it's just so integral with my values, with what I'm working towards spiritually, what I'm praying for, what I'm doing magic for, the people I'm trying to
Yeah.
serve. Like, I want us to be free, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. How about you, Paulina?
so sorry, I have a little foster kitten who keeps meowing.
Oh,
You guys want to see him
yeah,
really
I
quick?
want to see him.
Desperately. Oh my
Oh
God.
my God.
And he has an orange tail
Oh, he's so
and
cute.
orange ears.
Hi, little buddy.
You're just foster. You're not going to keep him forever.
No, they're coming to pick him up today, but this is my big boy.
Oh, so cute.
Yeah, okay, so back to that. So,
Back to feminism.
I
back to
know.
feminism.
Let's get heavy again.
Yes. Um, I really feel like it intersects so much because I didn't grow up that way. I don't think, I mean, I don't know if a lot of people in America really did grow up that way. But I mean, I don't really know if that statement's true or not. I mean, cancel me if you want, but basically, I feel like um I actually grew up in a household that was extremely conservative, and that's the way my fortune telling practice was as well. So there were certain things that like I was told, I guess, growing up. It's weird. No one's ever asked us that question, I don't think. And so it really, yeah, it really makes me reflect. Basically, um, there were certain things, that we were taught, I guess, like growing up to like lead people a certain way. I remember abortion was one of them. So we were taught to like if someone was struggling, whether like they should have an abortion or not, we were like, told things, great grandmothers would be like, always tell them no. And I'm like, okay, like I don't understand. So I feel like basically growing up, it was so different. And now that I'm aware of what those things even are, I feel like Jez was saying, I want to create such an inclusive, open, like community for all clients that come from everywhere. And we are really strong, feminists, just so everyone knows, like I'm, not against obviously anything like that. Reproductive rights are extremely important.
Extremely important.
My
Yes.
God, yeah.
And yeah, for sure. And like with the political climate right now, I mean, Jesus Christ, like I don't even know, it's scary. And at the same time, like, we have to stand up for each other and definitely through spiritual work. So now I'm not in a way that I'm like I don't politically try to lead anyone, anywhere or have, strong opinions in my professional life. But at the same time, it's like I want to provide that open communication. I want to provide that open world. And I think it's really helped my practice and my business and even my own mental health with yeah, practicing that way. So yeah.
I think the word to your point, Jez, the word feminism, no one has really ever understood that it's really just be who you are and do what you want to do.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
if you happen to be a female bodied person that wants to be home and have children and be a homemaker, you can do that. If you
Cool.
want to be, if
Great.
you are a female bodied person who wants to be a professional, go do that. If you want to be a weightlifter, go do that. If you want
Yeah.
to be a fashion, go do that. Like if so I think that the word feminism to your point is has kind of been corrupted and misunderstood. I
Hmm.
like the word, I don't know what you use, like a
Oh, gender liberationist. Yeah.
gender liberationist. Again, be who you are, do what you want to do. Nobody cares. Like just take, you know what I mean? Like just
Yeah,
do
let's have equal rights and get paid and like be able to go to the
right.
doctor and make choices about our own bodies and like
Right.
just
Like
have
why is it so hard? The freedom, just that
yeah.
freedom to be who you are. And to your point, Paulina, I would say, I mean, I'm much older than you guys, right? But I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and you
I did
thought
too.
there's no way you're as old as me, I swear. I think we thought that we were growing up in kind of a liberated mindset. But still, the messaging that we were receiving was, especially for me, was, well, you're a girl. So it's nice. You can think about those things, but you have to do this and you have to do that. And here are the things that are not really said, but implied that this is going to be your job, right?
Mhm.
You're going to have to take care of a husband. You're going to have to take care of your parents when they get old. You have to not be have an opinion. You
Have to
can
have a husband.
you have to have a husband, like that's paramount. You have to have it. And certain ways you behave and the way you dress and the way you act. Um, Whether or not those things were beaten over my head, but was like, well, you're not going to do that. And I am a fat person as well. So no, don't make that face. I'm taking that word. I am a fat person. So there's also, again, talking about the othering, you can't dress a certain way. People immediately think that you're a way that you're not healthy, that you're lazy, that you're not able to do things simply because you happen to be in this body, right? So I love this liberationist attitude of, everyone has the right to do anything and everything that they want. And when we look through that lens and put it into spirituality, for me, for witchcraft, we put that into witchcraft. And that's kind of what it's all about, right? Do what you will and harm none. That's the basic. Just be who you are and live your best life, right? I mean, that's the whole point. Um, okay. I want to make sure that we get to this. Where can people find you? How can people learn more about you, buy your book, follow you online?
Yay. So, romanistanpodcast.com has our resources page. So if you're like, I want to learn way more about this, we have a bunch of links there. And we are, of course, our podcast is on every podcast platform. It's a free resource, although we accept donations because we run it out of the goodness of our hearts and our very shallow pockets. And we are also putting on a festival in late March from March 28th to 30th in New Orleans. It's hosted by Mystic by Cottage Magic, and we'll also have a couple of other appearances at the Tennessee Williams Festival and Cafe Istanbul. And it's sponsored by Wiser Books, our publisher. It'll be so cool. There's a whole bunch of events from, fortune telling pop-ups to literary panels with Lilith Dorsey to a feast, a Romani style feast. So lots of cool things, live podcast recording. And you can also find us. I'm at jasminavontila.com and I do one-on-one readings and, events locally. I'll also travel. If you'll pay me to get there, I will go. And Paulina's the same. And I'm on Jasmina.vontila on Instagram. And pretty much that's my social media everywhere with or without the dot. Um, And yeah, so those are all the places you can find us. And we often do workshops and things like that. We have an events page, so we're still book touring. I'm doing a workshop virtually in February on the 16th with Caitlin Foisey, who we've also interviewed for Clarity and Confidence, called Honey and Roses. So we're doing all kinds of things. Paulina, where can they find you?
So you can find me on my website, romaniholistic.com, and also on Instagram at underscore Paulina underscore B underscore. And yeah, and we'll also be at those events.
Yeah,
Amazing.
Paulina will be in New Orleans. It'll be so fun. We don't get to hang in
Amazing.
person a lot, so it's a
That's
big deal.
incredible. We're going to put all those links in the show notes so people will be able to just click from the show notes and be able to find you. We're going to tag you in everything so everybody be able to click and find you and follow you and learn more about you. And they can buy the book, Secrets of Romani Fortune Telling, anywhere books are sold. Support your local bookstores, support your local metaphysical stores. If a place doesn't have it, ask them for it. Remember, authors don't make a lot of money on books, so please buy the book.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. And I asked this to all of my guests. It has nothing to do with anything we talked about today. Okay. I apologize if you can hear my cat screaming. It's dinner time. He's crying. He's obviously tortured. No one loves him. Um, so I'm a kitchen witch. If you could have me cook
Mm.
for you one magical meal, what would it be and why?
Oh my God.
Okay. Oh,
We were so
we're both
excited.
so
We were both
excited
like,
for this
ah,
one.
we love food.
Yeah.
I trust you to I trust you to make a gluten-free pasta for me. I love pasta. I can't have gluten. Just something that feels so Italian and wonderful. My dad's half Italian. I've got it in me.
I'm
I would love that.
celiac. I have celiac disease.
I knew I could trust you with this.
So literally, and I have a whole company where I make Italian food. So like I
Amazing.
literally make like olive oil and tomato sauce, and I'm coming out with a line of
Oh,
gluten-free
yeah.
pasta. I would make, can you eat dairy? Are you a dairy person?
I can have a little bit of dairy every once in a while. Oh my God. Also, we're doing an event together at the Bookery on March
We
22nd.
we are, but this podcast is going to air in April, so people will have
Okay.
missed it. But we are. It's very exciting. I would make you Oh, I would make you a gluten-free, like garlic bread and beautiful pasta dish, probably with like gorgeous peppers and onions and garlic and fresh basil and
Yes,
deliciousness. Because you're just so full of life. You would need a gorgeous pasta dish
I
that
need
had
that.
all these fresh vegetables, fresh tomatoes, fresh everything.
I
How
love
about you, Paulina? What would you want me to cook for
Well, I do want to be invited to that cookout, but
you?
I think a seafood boil,
Mm.
yeah,
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
a
I've never
magical.
made one of those.
You can do it. You can
Yeah.
do
I absolutely fucking can.
Yeah. Come to
hell
I
New
sh-
yeah.
Orleans.
and let me just say this. So it's interesting to me that since I learn a lot about people when they say what they want, a seafood boil, all of that, all seafood is linked to Aphrodite. It's all love,
Mm.
beauty, and sex magic.
Yes.
Okay.
So I
All
just learned a
right.
lot about you, Paulina.
Okay.
Okay.
Wow.
I learned that Jasmin is a carbaholic, and I learned that you got a little sauce, like you're a little feisty. So,
Let's say that.
ladies, thank you guys so much for being here. I appreciate you. I'm very grateful that you were here. I'm very grateful that you taught us so much about your culture and your magic. Thank you so much for everything. Until next time, everyone, I wish you so many blessings and so much gratitude.